Hello, Cool family, like and subscribe to the channel to know everything about Barcelona. In this video, we will talk about a huge masterstroke for Barcelona, but before that, we need to address other topics that are also very important for our beloved club. Let's start with the first point. Barcelona is preparing to make a strong impact on the transfer market, a move that confirms the strategic shift that the sports management has decided to take in this new era led by Hansi Flick. The name Ante Budemer now appears as one of the club's major targets, a firm and thoughtful bet aimed at strengthening a position that, in recent times, has raised more doubts than certainties, that of the pure centre-forward. Indeed, after years of betting on more mobile, associative profiles that play between the lines, we have understood at Barcelona that it was necessary to regain offensive balance with a reference in the box, capable of being the beacon in the most complex moments of matches. Hansi Flick, who since his arrival has radiated enthusiasm and confidence in the project, did not hesitate to clarify his football vision. A Barcelona faithful to its essence, but with a greater ability to adapt to different game contexts. In this sense, the figure of Budemer fits perfectly into the plans of the German coach. We are not talking about just any striker, but one of the most effective and decisive strikers in current Spanish football, a footballer who has reached competitive maturity and who, with an exceptional season behind him, has attracted the attention of the big clubs in the country, with Barcelona being the one that has decided to take the firmest step. The sports management, with Deco at its head, has carefully evaluated this operation and has found in Budemer an ideal solution to a problem that has too often affected us: the lack of alternatives in attack. Last season, without a clear reference in the opponent's box, we saw in many matches that we lacked that natural scorer, that striker who moves like a fish in water near the box, capable of pinning down central defenders and creating advantages for his teammates. Budemer brings that and much more. Not only is he a footballer who guarantees goals, as demonstrated by his 24 goals this season, but he is also a player who works for the team, who fights for every ball, who never gives up in any action and who, above all, knows perfectly the rigors of La Liga. He would not need an adaptation period, something crucial for a Barcelona that cannot afford to waste time on trials or risky bets. Here, we are not talking about potential, but about immediate performance, a footballer who has amply demonstrated his ability to perform at the highest level and who, moreover, is ready to make the definitive leap to a great club like ours. From the club, the first contacts have already been made with his entourage and with Osasuna, and although complex negotiations are expected, the sports management has full confidence in the possibility of concluding the operation on reasonable terms. This is not an exorbitant operation nor a transfer that unbalances the club's economic structure, but a measured, responsible investment that responds to a specific footballing need. In this new era, Barcelona wants to avoid media transfers that are justified more by image than by performance, and Budemer is the opposite. A footballer whose value is measured in goals, tactical contribution, and commitment on and off the field. Hansi Flick himself has given the green light to the operation, considering that Budemer can become an indispensable resource in certain matches, especially in those where the opponent proposes a low defensive block, closed defenses, and little space. In this type of match, where ball circulation is not enough to break down the opponent, that is where a reference in the box is needed, a striker who intimidates, who draws the attention of central defenders and who, by his mere presence, frees up space for second-line players to do damage. Budemer is a footballer with excellent back play, a remarkable ability to hold up the ball and give continuity to actions, and above all with a purity of efficiency in front of goal. Furthermore, the arrival of Budemer would be a key piece in managing the squad throughout a season that promises to be long and demanding, with multiple fronts open: La Liga, Copa, Europe, all tournaments in which Barcelona aspires to compete at the highest level. For this, it needs a large squad, with tactical variants and footballers who accept different roles without generating problems in the dressing room. Budemer, with his professional profile, fits perfectly into this model. An experienced veteran player, but with the necessary humility to understand that at Barcelona, not all minutes are equal and that prominence is distributed according to the needs of the team. It is impossible not to be enthusiastic about this type of move that reflects a Barcelona that has learned from the mistakes of the recent past. Gone are the bets on players who do not fit into the game model or who arrive directly without having proven anything in top-level competitions. Now, it is about strengthening specific positions with footballers who bring real and tangible solutions, allowing Hansi Flick to have all the necessary weapons to compete with any opponent. In my opinion, the Budemer operation is proof of institutional maturity and sporting intelligence. It is not about recruiting for the sake of recruiting, but about identifying a deficiency, the lack of a pure number 9, and seeking the best possible option in the market to fill it. Budemer not only meets all the footballing criteria but is also at an ideal moment in his career to take on a challenge of this magnitude. On the other hand, the transfer of Budemer must also be interpreted as a strategic move in the market. In an increasingly competitive football world, where the big clubs compete for the best talents at exorbitant prices, finding opportunities like the one represented by Budemer is fundamental to being able to strengthen the squad without endangering the club's economic stability. This is one of those low-cost, high-performance moves, an operation that can make the difference at key moments of the season. It is true that some might question the relevance of incorporating a striker with these characteristics into a club like Barcelona, historically linked to a more fluid and touch-based game model, where the figure of the classic number 9 has not always been a protagonist. But football evolves, and our club must evolve with it. It is not about renouncing our identity but enriching it, equipping the team with more resources and being able to face any type of match with guarantees, regardless of the circumstances. That is why I insist, the arrival of Budemer is, in every respect, a success. He brings goals, experience, physical presence, a capacity for sacrifice, and, above all, a tactical solution that we have too often lacked in the past. We must not forget that in recent years, we have seen lesser rivals take points from us simply because we did not have the ability to break down closed defenses, because we lacked that scorer who turns domination into goals. With Budemer, this deficiency can be resolved. Moreover, the synergy between the sports management and the technical staff is total on this issue. Hansi Flick has clearly expressed his desire to have a profile like Budemer's, and the sports management is doing everything possible to meet this demand. This internal coordination is a very positive sign that indicates that Barcelona is working seriously, coherently, and aligned in all its decisions. The supporters, of course, are watching this possible transfer with attention and expectation, and here I would like to address all the Kules directly. What do you think of this operation? Personally, I applaud it. I think it is the type of move we needed, which allows us to be more competitive and demonstrates that the club is focused on building a solid and sustainable project. It is no longer just about recruiting names, but about building a team with meaning, balance, and adaptability. The Barcelona we want to see next season is a team that maintains its essence but is also capable of evolving and incorporating new nuances into its game. The arrival of Budemer is a step in this direction, a decision that strengthens the team. That is why, for my part, I can only show my enthusiasm and full support for this operation. I hope it concludes as soon as possible and that we can see Budemer in blue and garnet, bringing all his talent and experience to our team, helping Barcelona to become what it has always been, a winning, competitive club and a reference in the world of football. Because Barcelona never stops dreaming, never stops fighting, and this type of move shows that we are on the right path. The second piece of news concerns a very important decision in our beloved club. Barcelona finds itself once again at the center of the international football market, making a significant impact with an operation that promises to revolutionize not only the present but, above all, the future of the club. The incorporation of Franco Mastenono, the young 17-year-old Argentine midfielder, has become the top priority for the Blaugrana sports management in an operation that undoubtedly reflects the strategic vision guiding our club's moves in this new era under the leadership of Hansi Flick, who has already given the green light to the operation. Barcelona is preparing to finalize one of the most exciting and promising transfers in recent times. Franco Mastenono is not just another talent from the inexhaustible canteras of South American football. He represents a rarity, a complete footballer who has demonstrated, in every appearance with River Plate, technical quality, game vision, and a personality beyond his years. It is no surprise that the reports managed by Barcelona's Secretaria Technica are unanimous. We are facing a footballer who can define an era, who has everything to become one of the references in world football in the coming years, and who, moreover, fits perfectly into the football philosophy that has always characterized the club. The bet on Mastenono is not simply a future operation but a smart investment responding to a very clear strategy: to strengthen the midfield with a profile that brings talent, creativity, and verticality, while ensuring the continuity of a game model based on possession, control, and tactical intelligence. The figure of the young Argentine has completely seduced Hansi Flick, who sees in him a piece that can gradually integrate into the dynamics of the first team, contributing from the beginning in certain game situations and growing under the aegis of a structure that has always known how to enhance and develop young talents. Barcelona's interest in Mastenono is not new. 4 months, the club scouts have closely followed his evolution in the Argentine Championship, preparing exhaustive reports highlighting his ability to play between the lines, his impressive game vision, his precise and powerful shot, as well as his audacity to face opponents one-on-one. Added to this is his ability to penetrate the box dangerously, becoming a constant threat to opposing defenses. Franco Mastenono's release clause, set at €45 million by River Plate, has not been an obstacle for Barcelona to decide to take the step forward. On the contrary, from the sports management, it is considered a more than reasonable amount, given the footballer's projection, his age, and the value he can bring, both sportingly and economically, in an increasingly inflationary market. Securing the transfer of one of the most promising players in world football for such an amount is considered a real opportunity not to be missed. Of course, we are not the only ones to have identified Mastenono's potential. Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester United, Inter Milan, and other major European clubs have shown interest in his services. However, Barcelona has positioned itself in a privileged position in the race for his transfer, thanks to a combination of factors that have always weighed in the decision of great talents when choosing their destination. The tradition of betting on young players, a style of play that favors the technical and tactical development of creative footballers, and a solid sports project offering guarantees of growth in the medium and long term. Furthermore, Hansi Flick's role has been key to reinforcing the club's confidence in this operation. The German coach, who has recently taken the reins of the team, has clearly indicated from the first moment that he wants to build a squad combining experience and youth, with versatile footballers capable of adapting to different game contexts. In this sense, Mastenono perfectly embodies this profile, a midfielder capable of acting as an organizer but also of breaking lines with drives or through passes, and who does not shy away from the responsibility of finishing when the situation requires it. From River Plate, the position has been clear. They will only let the player go if the full clause is paid. The Argentine club knows perfectly well the treasure it has in its hands and is not willing to negotiate downwards. However, from Barcelona's sports management, it is considered that the economic effort is worth it, as the operation has enormous strategic value, both sportingly and institutionally. Incorporating Mastenono not only means adding pure talent, but also reinforcing the message that Barcelona remains the preferred destination for young footballers aspiring to write their own story in the elite. Another factor that has played in Barcelona's favor in this operation has been the fluid relationship with the footballer's entourage, who view very favorably the possibility of Franco Mastenono continuing his progression in a club that has historically known how to care for and enhance young players. The footballer himself has shown a serene and mature attitude, calmly evaluating each step of his career and being aware that his arrival in Europe must occur at the right time, in an environment favorable to his growth, and this environment is undoubtedly Barcelona. Beyond the strictly sporting aspect, this transfer also represents a reaffirmation of the values and principles that have guided Barcelona throughout its history. The decisive bet on talent, trust in youth, and the defense of a game model that privileges technique, tactical intelligence, and spectacle. Mastenono embodies all these values and represents, ultimately, the type of footballer who has always made camp vibrate. Of course, we cannot ignore the existing competition for this transfer. Paris Saint-Germain, as usual, is ready to put astronomical figures on the table to convince the player, and Manchester United and Inter Milan have also made moves. However, history shows that, in many cases, great talents prefer to join a project that offers them stability, real opportunities for development, and, above all, a style of play adapted to their characteristics, and in this, Barcelona has no rival. In short, I think we are facing an operation that can mark a before and after in Barcelona's sports planning. The transfer of Franco Mastenono would not only strengthen the team with a footballer of proven quality but also send a clear message to the football world. Barcelona remains the epicenter of talent, the breeding ground for great stars, the place where the dreams of young footballers become reality. The third piece of news concerns a huge blow for the club. Barcelona is facing a pivotal moment in shaping its squad for the immediate future, and it comes with news that, as a Actu, I find particularly painful. The more than likely departure of Casado, one of the great gems of our cantera, a footballer who has grown and been trained according to the principles and values that have always characterized this club, and who now seems to have 1.5 foot out the door, tempted by an irresistible offer from Manchester United. Everything indicates that, unless there is a radical turnaround in the coming weeks, the young midfielder will set his sights on England in exchange for €60 million, an amount that the English club is willing to pay without hesitation, aware of the talent and potential that this player possesses, who, under the direction of Hansi Flick, has gained increasing prominence in the dynamics of the first team. From the county town, various sources close to the entity have confirmed that Casado's decision is practically made. The player considers that it is time to make a leap in his career, not only on a sporting level but also on an economic level, since Manchester United has put on the table a proposal that amounts to around €17 million per year in salary, an amount that Barcelona, in its current economic situation, is not able to match. And it is precisely this financial context that makes the difference, preventing the club from competing on equal terms with the great European transatlantic clubs, which, with their overflowing coffers, come to fish in our cantera, taking advantage of the difficulties we have been dragging on for years. The feeling of helplessness is total. As a Cule, I am invaded by a mixture of frustration, sadness, and resignation. Frustration, because we know that Casado is not just any player, but a midfielder with enormous projection, an understanding of the game, and tactical intelligence that few players of his age possess. Sadness, because his departure is perceived as yet another episode in a trend that, unfortunately, has become all too frequent in recent times. The flight of homegrown talents who, just as they are about to consolidate themselves in the first team, decide to leave for abroad, lured by the promise of million-dollar contracts and seemingly more solid sports projects, or at least more economically stable ones. Resignation, because, to be honest, Barcelona cannot enter into this war of numbers. The club has opted in recent years for a policy of restraint and financial sustainability, aware that the excesses of the past, when big transfers and astronomical salaries seem to have no consequences, have led us to an unsustainable situation that now conditions each of our decisions. As painful as the loss of Casado may be, the truth is that matching Manchester United's offer would be irresponsible, a risk we cannot afford to take. But beyond the economic issues, what truly hurts is the sporting and symbolic loss that Casado's departure represents. Under the direction of Hansi Flick, the young midfielder had found the ideal context to continue growing, to gradually carve out a place in the starting 11, and, above all, to become one of the cornerstones of the new project that the German coach is building with patience and ambition. Flick had seen in Casado that player capable of bringing balance, dynamism, and discernment to the midfield, a versatile footballer with the ability to recover balls but also with the necessary quality to initiate play and offer creative solutions in the offensive phase. Since his arrival in the first team, Casado has only confirmed all the expectations he had raised during his time in the lower categories. His maturity, his ability to interpret the game, his physical deployment, and his tactical intelligence have quickly transformed him into an indispensable footballer for the coach, who did not hesitate to give him playing time in the most demanding matches. And Casado responded as homegrown players always do, with commitment, dedication, and a naturalness that can only be explained by the years of training in a game model he knows perfectly. That is why it is so difficult to accept that now, when he is more than ready to consolidate himself in the first team, he has decided to pack his bags. As a Cule, I cannot help but wonder what we are doing wrong. Are we not able to convey to our young players that it is here, at Barcelona, where they can reach the pinnacle of their careers? Is the economic factor so determining that even sentimental attachment, the connection with the club, and the possibility of triumphing in one of the greatest teams in the world are not enough to keep them? I refuse to believe that money is the only argument determining Casado's decision, but it is evident that it plays a crucial role, especially when the figures involved are so disproportionate. Casado's departure also opens a debate on the management of the cantera and the need to establish mechanisms that allow us to protect our talents to prevent them from being seduced by clubs with superior financial capabilities. The cantera has always been one of the fundamental pillars of our identity, an inexhaustible source of footballers who have not only brought quality to the team but have represented like no other the values of the institution. Losing a player like Casado is, in this sense, a small defeat in this battle to preserve our essence. I know that some will think that 60 million euros is a sum difficult to refuse, that with this money we can address other transfers, strengthen other positions, or even partially alleviate the delicate financial situation that the club is going through. But I also believe that there are things that money cannot compensate for. The quality, projection, and commitment of Casado are not easily found in the market, and even less so at a reasonable price. Selling him now, when he is on the verge of definitively exploding, seems to me a strategic mistake, a decision that could mortgage the sporting future of the team in a key position. Furthermore, Casado's departure represents a setback for Hansi Flick, who counted on him as one of the pillars on which to build his project. The German coach, who has demonstrated since his arrival a decided commitment to young talents, loses one of his favorite players, that midfielder who, without making noise, had managed to carve out a place thanks to work, effort, and performance. Flick will now have to rethink his scheme and look for alternatives, either in the market or in the cantera, although it is evident that replacing Casado will not be an easy task. For all these reasons, as a Cule, I clearly position myself against this departure. I think that Barcelona should have done everything possible to retain Casado, offering him not only an economic improvement within our possibilities but also an exciting sports project that would have made him feel that here, he can achieve all his goals. I understand the economic limitations, but I also believe that in cases like this, where the permanence of one of our greatest talents is at stake, we must try to go a little further. Now, I would like to know the opinion of the Cule supporters. What do you think about Casado's departure? Do you think it is an inevitable operation given the circumstances, or do you think, like me, that we should have fought harder to retain him? To what extent should the club prioritize economic sustainability over the sporting continuity of its young promises? Are we doomed to see our best canteranos leave one after another in search of more lucrative contracts, or can we still reverse this trend and become once again that club that not only trains great footballers but also convinces them that this is where they should stay? Whatever the answer, what is clear is that Casado's departure, if confirmed, will be a hard blow for all those who feel these colors, a significant sporting loss, an emotional disappointment for those who closely follow the evolution of our young players, and a call for deep and self-critical reflection on how to manage the talent coming from our cantera. Barcelona is and must continue to be a club that bets on its own, that trusts in the talent formed at home, and that knows how to protect its promises from the siren songs of the European giants. Only in this way can we maintain our identity and continue to be that global reference which, for decades, has been synonymous with good football, cantera, and commitment. I hope that at least this painful lesson will serve to strengthen this conviction and avoid stories like Casado's from repeating in the future. Leave us your opinion in the comments.